Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully you're getting settled in, getting a nice little drink for yourself. Cheers. What? So, being that we're all trapped at home, I'm gonna make a little cocktail for everybody real quick. I don't have a ton of ingredients in my house, but one of the things I do have is citrus and honey in this little mug. And I have no device to measure it with, so I'm just gonna go ahead and guess. Tonight I'll be making everybody a gold rush, which is essentially honey and lemon juice and a little bit of whiskey, shaken up, served over ice. But since I don't have lemons, we're gonna substitute it with limes. A little bit of honey. A little bit of lime. Oh yeah, squeeze it on in there. That's all you gotta do. Whiskey is probably an important thing to put in there. It's been a while since I've made a cocktail. I've been stuck at home for, how long has it been, Jay? 9 days? 10 days? I've forgotten. Bet you don't even know how to do this anymore, Jay. It's as easy as that. Just a little bit of honey, a little bit of citrus, some ice, a quick shake, some bourbon, and we are good to go. Perhaps this drink doesn't taste any good at all, but I have a test dummy over here to find out for us.
A test dummy. Thank you, bartender. Cheers, everyone. What is this drink called?
That's a Gold Rush. Just a little bit of lemon, a little bit of honey, and some whiskey.
Oh, that's so good. The honey and the lemon, my favorite combination. Stop.
No, that's pretty good.
It is really good. Can I keep this?
Ripping off my mustache. Yes, you can keep that. That's free for you, little lady. Going on in the crowd. And that's a cocktail for everybody.
All right, now everybody has their welcome cocktail. Welcome, whiskey freaks. It's good to see you all again. I'm not sure where my cocktail is and what I did to not get one of those. All right, so today we're going to be talking about Scotch whiskey. We have an array of Scotches here. Josh is going to talk you through some history, some production techniques. We're going to talk through all the different regions. We're going to drink through all the different regions. If you guys at home have all the different regions available, pick them now, grab them now, pour yourself a dram. We'll probably start with the lowland. So pour yourself something to sip on whilst Josh is talking us through the history. We also are going to have a question section. So our wonderful co-host, Ivany, is going to be taking your questions. So any questions you have, jot them down in the chat bar, and then we can get to them just after the history section. Over to you guys in San Diego.
Hello, everybody. We got about another 10 minutes to start because I am wicked fast at making drinks. It's been a long time since I've created a cocktail, but it looks like I am still fast as can be. So we're just going to give it a little bit longer.
We do have a question real quick.
Oh, we have a question already.
Mr. Shanahan asking, did you just make simple syrup?
No, Mr. Pedro Shanahan, I did not make just simple syrup. I actually made a honey syrup. The best way to make honey syrup is to 3 parts honey, 1 part hot water, Looks like that cocktail's already kicking in. You mix those together until they form a solution, and you're good to go. If you take just honey, pour it into your cocktail shaker and start shaking it, that honey will get cold and clump up. So you need to dilute it a little bit with water. So I made a honey syrup with just a little bit of hot water.
So maybe you want to give some shout out to those who are online right now, because you have
Who's
a
online right now?
nice
Yeah,
list there.
So yeah, we got all kinds of fun people in here. Big shout out to Jay Stapleton, who's joining me tonight. We got Kayla Tricasso in the house. Ooh, wow, watch out. Also, Brian Pierce and Stephanie Aguilar. What's up?
Ooh, hi.
And yeah, I don't really know how this works, so I'm just gonna pass it on to my associate over here.
Mr. Marty Thomas says hi.
Oh,
Okay.
Marty, yes.
We already have other questions. All right, Robert Mendoza says, if I tell you what Scotch I have, can you tell me what region it's from?
Ooh.
Oh, trivia. Let's get straight into it.
What kind of Scotch do you have, Robert Mendoza?
That is, if we get it wrong, we have to drink, and if we get it right, we have to drink.
Ooh, drinking games.
It's a double win.
Feel like I'm in college again.
You guys poured you a whiskey yet?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Ivan, has he poured you a whiskey yet?
He's going to in a second. He went to go choose a nice bottle. I know. I mean,
Oh,
he has a nice collection back here.
So I am currently drinking 1987 Caledonian Distillery Lowland whiskey that we'll be talking about later.
1987. I wasn't even born yet.
Wow, I'm making us all feel old.
No.
Even the whiskey. No, you even make the whiskey feel old. All right, Josh is back with some whiskey. What you got there, mate?
Ivan and I will be kicking the night off with some glorious local Lomond 18-year-old. I don't know if you can see this.
Good shout.
This is actually a gift from Jay Stapleton, who probably doesn't even remember because he was a little drunk that night.
Sounds handsome.
All right, so back to Robbie's question where he asked about the region. I can't really pronounce that, so maybe Josh, you know more about this Scotch stuff.
Lafroig. Lafroig is one of my favorite notes. Lafroig 10-year, I believe, probably.
Isn't that an Irish whiskey?
No. Although it does come in a green bottle. Lafroig is from the Isle of Islay, which translates into the island of Ireland.
Yeah. Oh, is that it? Is that what the bottle looks like?
This is just the obnoxious version of it that I'm showing up with.
It's a fancy version.
That's a good red right there.
Nah.
That's pretty cool. Okay, let's see. We have one of our viewers, Marty Thomas, who is drinking Maker's Mark out of a bottle.
Out of the bowl. Classic Marty.
And he says that he always mispronounces Scotch whiskey. How is that? How do you mispronounce that?
They're all old Gaelic words, so they're pretty difficult to pronounce. But sometimes they're lucky enough they put it phonetically on the bottle for you, so you don't look like an idiot.
Sure.
They have like a phonics? Phonic?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. That's cool. Jay, so you're all the way in LA. We're in San Diego. What's it like over there right now? Just really quickly with, of course, our pandemic going on with COVID-19. You don't have to get sad about it, but, you know, at least make us feel better.
Yeah, obviously it's terrible and there's a lot of terrible things going on, but I mean, I'm kind of enjoying being at home, reading books, drinking whiskey, hanging out with my partner and our lovely little dog. So actually, to be honest, without wanting to like put a nice spin on a morbid situation, it's been pretty nice as far as it goes, really. When you've got this much whiskey, you know, I've got a good, 7 days worth of whiskey there probably to get through. So after that, I'm gonna be in trouble. But at the moment, I'm doing all right.
Oh, that's good to hear. Josh, you want to share your lovely... How long have we been inside this house for? We've lost count.
I believe we've been in this house since the 15th of March, and it is now the 27th. So what's that, 12 days? That's getting pretty wearisome. Probably the biggest thing I've been struggling with is I'm super used to working at 7 grand where I can pretty much taste any whiskey I want to taste. And I've learned that my selection, although it is extensive, is pretty minuscule compared to 7 grand. And I'm getting pretty sad because I was reading about Ardbeg today and I was like, oh, fuck, I need to taste a glass of Ardbeg. And I don't have any Ardbeg. And it was the first time I've really spent a day where I can't drink the whiskeys I want to drink. And this pandemic is starting to set in, everybody. It's setting in.
I love how there's people dying in the world and our problem is that we don't have enough whiskey to drink.
That is true. Talk to me next week. I'll be singing a different song.
There's some problems.
Exactly. Aside from that, it is great that you guys are hosting this live YouTube whiskey tasting because it gives us something to look forward to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we get to chat, or you guys get to chat with your YouTube friends who are commenting, viewers. So today, Josh has been very excited all day because he's been looking forward to, having the whiskey presentation and talking to everyone out there. So we have another fun question here from Miss Kayla. Actually, from Sean, who wants to know whose mustache is most luxurious.
In the whole world?
I think she means between you guys.
I think you win that one, mate. I had a shave the other day as well, so I'm losing that battle.
I've been shaved since it all started, and I noticed that I grow a lot of neck hair. Not a lot of hair on my face, just pretty much the mustache and then the neck. So
I can see that.
But I have been brushing it a lot lately. There's not much to do, so just been combing it.
It looks wonderful.
It does look good.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
We get into some history.
Well, no, it looks like we're about a minute away from going live, even though we're quite close. I figured we should.
Oh, okay, nice. So we should get some more then.
We're just kind of 2 minutes till 8 o'clock, and then we will pretend like we didn't even have this conversation.
Yeah.
Because I think that's how live television works.
Tell us about these whiskeys behind you, Josh.
What's that, mate?
Tell us what whiskeys you got there behind you.
Oh, right behind me, I got a little Loch Lomond 18-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
See my good friend, Mr. J. Stapleton. I also have a series of sample bottles from Adelphi that I have yet to bust into. I don't know if you can see those.
Really?
Little,
What do you have? What distillery?
28 year. We got a little Kleinleach 17-year-old.
Kleinleach is a sleeper, right? No one knows about Kleinleach, but it's a banger.
We got a little Glendronach 18-year-old we'll be drinking for dessert. And we also have a little bit of Bowmore Vault Edition.
Oh, didn't we get that?
Isla whiskey. I believe this is a gift from Brett, Chad, and yourself.
And me, yeah, we got Chad. Was it Chad? No, it wasn't Chad. Me, Brett, and that might be it.
Zach.
Oh, Michelle.
And Michelle. Hello, Michelle, if you're out there.
You texted me the other day.
I have drank most of the bottle, but have no idea what this tastes like anymore. So I'm looking forward to popping this open.
That was banging.
Well, it is 8 o'clock and we are ready to rock and roll. So cheers, Jay.
Cheers, my lovely. Cheers to all you whiskey freaks out there on YouTube world.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of Whiskey Society Live. I'm your host, Josh Judd. Joining us tonight, we have Ivan Villalobos, who will be answering all of our questions on comments on YouTube. And live from Los Angeles, California, Jay Stapleton. Jay, how are you doing tonight?
I'm feeling great, mate. Great to be here. Good to see you again. Great to put the old Dickie bow back on. It's been a long time, so it feels good.
I don't really know what a Dickie bow is, but to be continued. Tonight, we'll be talking about Scotch whiskey. Scotch whiskey has gone from strength to strength, surviving prohibition, wars, economic depressions, recessions, and revolutions. and has maintained its position as the international spirit of the world, extending to over 200 countries. And tonight we'll be talking about how this is, what characteristics Scotch possesses.
You got
Awkward.
it.
And yeah, we'll be talking about what makes Scotch everybody's favorite spirit. So, a little bit of history to get us started, so we feel like we're learning something tonight. The earliest records of distillation in Scotland go back to 1494, where scrolls were written to a friar named John Core, and they asked for aquavita, which translates into water of life. Going further, 200 years, really quick, to 1664, you see the first taxes implemented on Scottish whiskey. This basically inspires people to start creating illicit distilleries, because who wants to pay taxes, right?
Not me.
That's right. And by 1782, they seized 1,000 illicit stills in 1 year from the Highland region of Scotland alone. And we'll touch on the regions of Scotland a little bit later tonight. So moving forward, all this taxation created a lot of illicit distillation throughout Scotland. People were hiding it, they were selling it illegally, they were smuggling it any way they could throughout Scotland to avoid the taxations. And what ended up happening is the English government, being the wise colonists that they were, I want to say colonialists, no offense, Jay.
No take you bastards.
Wise colonists that they were, they reduced this tax in 1823, called the excise tax, which basically reduced the taxation on malted barley and basically allowed people to apply for licenses for £10, and then a set price on proof gallons of proof spirit afterwards. So you saw an explosion of legal distilleries open all over Scotland. The first one being the Glenlivet Distillery in 1824. And this kind of opened the door to the way we know Scotch whiskey today, because you have all these legal distilleries creating a product they don't have to run through the woods for. They're set up shop, they're paying their taxes, and they're able to employ people, and the industry explodes. There's a few factors that come into play that helped catapult Scotch whiskey to the it is today. And there was a weird chime on my computer. I don't really know what that was for, but that's cool.
Whiskey.
So now we're in 1831, and an Irish gentleman named Ernest Coffey invented continuous distillation. And this changed whiskey because it made it easier to produce. It made it better grain spirit to it. Jay, could you chime in and talk about what makes grain whiskey kind of light and delicious?
Yeah, for sure. So generally when we're talking about Scotch, when we're talking about grain, we'll be saying wheat, sometimes rye, sometimes corn, but generally not rye because it's expensive and it gums up the stills. When we're talking about wheat, it tends to be a little bit of a lighter grain, sweeter. What happened there? The notes you're going to get off that are a lot more floral. The mouthfeel is going to be big, fat, creamy, velvety, and beautiful. So the grain whiskey that you'll get from most distilleries, like we have a few back here, the Exceptional Grain, which is a banging little grain whiskey. Definitely, you guys should try that one if you see it. They tend to be a little more, a little richer, I suppose is the best way of putting it, a little more floral. Should you go with that, Josh?
Yep. Amazing. So we basically had continuous invented, and that gave us a huge increase in production and efficiency among whiskey, and also gave it a lighter, more charming side to the fiery single malt whiskeys that we're used to. So people are starting to come along to blended scotches, and 1880, little beetle that is related to the boll weevil that wiped out the cotton crops in the South of America, called the phylloxera beetle, wiped out the vineyards in France in the 1860s, 1870s, and people were huge fans of wine and brandy. That was pretty much the predominant spirit that people drank. So this beetle pretty much wiped out all of these vineyards. So it like basically ate at the root systems of these vines and killed the whole plant. So within a few years, you watched wine and cognac disappear from cellars around the world. And Scotch whiskey was quick to capitalize on this reduction in spirit. And so by the time the vineyards had conquered the phylloxera beetle and came back to life, Scotch whiskey had already taken its place as the spirit of choice. So what we'll be talking a lot about tonight is single malt whiskeys. I actually only have one blended whiskey in my whole collection and a lot of single malt whiskeys. And a question we get a lot at the bar is, what does single malt mean? What does malted barley mean? And Jay, do you want to answer this question?
Yeah, for sure. So the process of malting essentially it's a really interesting and actually pretty simple process. Barley in general is like a seed, it's a grain. And the idea that you malt it would be you would put it on a malting floor, which is normally just a regular concrete floor. You slightly wet it, and essentially what you're doing there is you're germinating the grain. So you're bringing it to life. You're watering it like you would do a plant. And with that, you'll get a tiny little towel come off the seed as if it was going to grow into a plant. And whilst it does that, it produces carbohydrates inside the seed. We're going to turn those carbohydrates, the sugars essentially, into whiskey further down the line. So whilst you have that little germination of a seed, you will then grind that into a grist or into a kind of like a flour. And then from that, you add water, you add yeast, and then essentially you're turning it into a porridge or an oatmeal at that point. When you add the yeast eats all those carbohydrates that we produced in the malting process, the germination process. And then eventually you'll get a beer because a really very quick run through of essentially the fermentation process. It will fart out CO2, shit out alcohol essentially, and then you get a really crude oatmeal beer that you can throw for a still and get your first distillation.
Beautiful answer. Do we have any questions from the crowd?
All right. Well, so far right now we have Mr. Pedro saying grain whiskey can be astringent. Is that how you say that
Astringent.
one? Astringent.
Yep.
Sorry,
I'm astringent.
My accent does not help me sometimes. So he mentioned that. Also, Miss Lucia says richer and floral from grain whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that means, but it must be something to you. Means something to you guys. And then we have Ms. Andy Trucasso saying cheers.
Cheers, Andy.
So one of our questions here from one of your guys' viewers is, what's better, single malt or blended?
Jay, do you want to take this one, or would you like me to take this one?
Yeah, but let's both do it. Let's both have a stab at it. So, I mean, whatever you like is whatever is the best, basically. If you like blended whiskey, my granddad went to bed every night with a blended whiskey in his hand. That or Glenfiddich, actually. So, I mean, whatever you like is the best. But the market standard generally says that single malt is the best as far as it goes. The production techniques, the kind of real nuance and subtleties and beauty that you get in a single malt whiskey is a little more difficult to find in a grain whiskey. It tends to be a little more gritty as far as it goes. So generally, people are going to want single malt, but honestly, it's like whatever you like. Compass Box has proved that blended whiskey can be beautiful. So whatever you like, basically. But most people seem to lean towards single malts.
Single malts.
I do agree. People do seem to be more fascinated with single malts, whereas blended Scotch still dominates overall sales of the market. So a majority of sales still go to blended Scotch, which you can't discredit because people still love to drink their Dewar's and their Chivas and their Buchanans and their, famous Grouse and Johnny Walker. That being said, a lot of the prestige has been going to those single malts. For example, I have a Klein Leash 17-year right here, single malt, that is quite delicious.
Dude, Klein Leash is a banger. Klein Leash is one of those whiskeys that it's a sleeper whiskey. No one seems to have figured it out. and it's just a beautiful whiskey it's in a few other blends. You know, Scotch uses it a lot for their blends. Just a beautiful whiskey.
I feel like it's a double-edged sword. Some of my all-time favorite whiskeys I've ever tasted have been blended, but then some of the most like memorable whiskeys that really struck out to me have been single malt. So it's like I can see both sides of it, you know.
Yeah, and the blends are the thing in a lot of the whiskey assets. The blends are the things that make them the bulk of the money. So the way I always kind of look at blends is if you owned a nightclub and on the side you had a little speakeasy, the nightclub is going to pay for the speakeasy, but you really want to go to the speakeasy. You know what I mean? The blend is kind of like that. You look at some of the blends, and I think Glendronach is in what? Teachers. You've got Aberfeldy that's in
Cream.
Judd. Beautiful whiskeys that, I mean, they really came about being single malts because they were in the blends and people became interested in the component whiskeys of the blends and then became standalone whiskeys of their own. So like there should be a lot of respect that goes to blended whiskey, I think. You know, as far as it goes, I can drink a blended whiskey, enjoy it, and also it makes cocktails more approachable for a price point and things like that. So from a bartender point of view.
So speaking of price point, one of your viewers here, Tom Corner, is asking, here's a question for you guys. What are some top selling blends and single malts at $7,000 in San Diego? Are you able to answer that?
Oh, I can answer that for sure. We're not open anymore, but when we were open, this is one of the best blended whiskeys we carry. It is one of our personal single barrel selections from Compass Box called Great King Street. This is a single marrying cask of sherry to this blend, and it is absolutely delicious. After this, I would say almost anything Compass Box is probably going to be in first place. And then probably Johnny Walker Black Label, because everybody loves that. So.
All right. And yeah, go ahead, Jake.
I was going to say, like, I got no hatred for Johnny Walker Black other than the fact that most arseholes order it. But, like, it's delicious. The red label is terrible, I think, but the black is banging. Like, I'll drink that all day long.
And if you're one of those assholes out there ordering Johnny Walker, have a good time.
Yeah. Welcome. Thanks for joining us. Yeah.
Javon, asshole. Just kidding. All right. One of our viewers here, Hallie, is asking, what is your favorite single malt of all time, Jay and Josh?
Oh, fuck. That's a big one.
Good question, Hallie. I would say my favorite single malt of all time would have to be Glenfarclas 17-year-old. Privy to trying this Glenfarclas 17-year-old. Most of the whiskeys I drink in were going to be, making me jelly over here. Oh.
Is that the bottle?
That is the bottle.
Oh, nice.
Before I had tried Glenfarclas 17-year-old, I had only tried bourbons and ryes that I had enjoyed. Every Scotch that I had tasted was like peaty and aggressive and just really hot and fiery, intense. And I wasn't into it. And then one day, a gentleman named Brett Winfield grabbed a bottle of Glenfarclas 17-year-old, poured me a dram, and I literally remember it to this day, like vividly, the smell and being like, wait, what is this? And him being like, oh, that's Scotch. And I was like, no, I don't like Scotch. What is this? And he was like, dude, it's Scotch. And that's like the first time where I really opened the door to me, where it was like, all right, what's this Scotch whiskey all about? I need to drink more of it.
Yeah. So in $7,000 San Diego, we had our zombie apocalypse plan. And basically that was, if there was a zombie apocalypse, what 2 bottles would you grab from the wall? We was obviously lock all the doors, was going to go to the smoking patio and watch everybody get eaten. So what 2 bottles would you grab from the wall whilst you watch the apocalypse go down? And I think mine, as far as like zombie apocalypse bottle, would be, I'm with Zach on what he said the other day, Highland Park Freya was just,
Ooh, Freya was a good one.
The moment. So that for me would be my zombie apocalypse bottle. And I think like pound for pound, it's, I think, staying in the same distillery, which is a shame, I suppose, but Highland Park 12 year is, for me, like I can drink that any bar I see this in, I can go in and sip that all day long. Like I love that whiskey. So I'd say those 2.
So I have a question. How do you guys best enjoy a glass of Scotch?
What's the best way to enjoy a glass of Scotch? when it goes down into your belly.
Put it in your face, yeah.
But do people drink it on the rocks, neat? Is that common?
So we generally recommend people to drink whiskey neat, especially for the first time. If you're trying a whiskey that you've never had before, you don't know if it needs water or ice. So I always recommend at least giving it a little sip neat at room temperature, because you just really don't know what it tastes like. Then after that first sip, if you decide that it needs a little bit of water and a little bit of ice, I don't think anybody's enforcing any rules upon you.
Yeah, and I find like palate's a really strange thing. Like if I'm in a situation like hanging out at 7 Grand with all of my friends, I can sip whiskey neat all day long. If I'm at home watching a film, sometimes I like just to throw a little bit of ice in there just to calm it down, because my palate's it's like too relaxed in a weird way. If I'm at home, watching a film, I don't want to be really kind of absorbing every flavor, and sometimes I just want it to be a little bit chilled out and just to go down a little easier. So I think it's so like site specific as well. But I'm with Josh. First off, if you should try whiskey without any ice and get to know it naked, and then if you need to add something after that.
Add some cloves later on. Yeah, I like that. And what Jay was saying is sometimes it's not all about the flavor and the amazingness of whiskey. Sometimes it's for the medicinal purposes. So drink up, everybody.
Cheers to that.
So let's dive into some regions. Scotland is an amazing distilled spirit category. There's a reason the entire world, if you say whiskey, you pretty much mean Scotch. And it's because it's so amazing. And one of my most favorite quality of the whole thing is how there's so many diverse styles of Scotch on this one peninsula. So we're going to dive into some of the regions of Scotland. We'll start off in the lowlands, where Jay will kind of show off some of his beautiful collections. We'll move to Campbelltown. Then we'll visit some of the Highland whiskeys, some of the Speyside whiskeys, and then at the end we'll finish in the Isles, and we'll kind of just chat about the whiskeys. Ask us any questions you have. What whiskeys you guys are drinking out there? We hear it. I know my homegirl Kayla Tricasso is drinking some Glenlivet Founders Reserve in 1824. Congratulations. But yeah, get started. Jay, you showed me some amazing lowland whiskeys earlier.
Yeah, so this is a fun one. This is actually a gift that I got from one of our sister bars, the Normandy Club. Their general manager, Carrie, gave us this as a gift. And it's incredible, to be honest. So this is from, if you guys can see the label, it's a private bottler that is a 1987 28-year from Caledonian Distillery, which is a lowland distillery, which is now mothballed. It's been mothballed since this year. So this would have been a bottle to come off their stills, or out their barrels, I should say, in 1987, which is kind of bonkers. It is a cask strength, natural color. Don't think it's single barrel. Yep, single barrel, which is nuts. So yeah, pretty bonkers. And this is banging. So this is one of those whiskies that in the lowlands that really kind of took its style from Irish whiskey, coming up. So whiskey, as far as we're aware, and in the iteration that we know, was first produced in Ireland. And as it was in Ireland, it was in Northern Ireland and travelled up through Scotland, through that pass, that channel just there. So you would imagine that Bushmills right then on the tip of Northern Ireland would be a huge influence for the Scotch distilleries in Campbelltown, probably Islay, and then in the lowlands as well. And this was one of those whiskies that has a real Irish style to it. It's pot still, grain whiskey, double distilled. So similar to Auchentoshan, I actually have a peculiar bottle of Auchentoshan here that maybe we'll dig into later on as well.
Ooh.
As well. 20 years, so it's an off year. So that's a pretty cool one. So yeah, from the lowlands then, like I say, it was a really Irish influenced distillate. It was at one point one of the largest distilleries in the world, the largest distillery in Scotland for decades. And then now it's a block of luxury apartments, which is a right bastard. But it's a beautiful dram, really nice, really fruity actually, like a lot of stone fruits and bits and pieces like that off it. You can see natural color, so a nice kind of like honey straw. Yeah, beautiful whiskey. Like thankful for that gift because that is, I mean, that's priceless. You can't really find that. I wouldn't have thought, and I wouldn't know where to look either, to be honest. So that's a banger. What you drinking over there?
I just poured myself a lovely glass of some Campbelltown Scotch from the lovely Glen Scotia distillery.
Well, Victoriana's a good one.
Ooh, this is one of my all-time favorites. I really can't even speak anything about it because I literally forgot I had it until 10 minutes ago when Ivan pulled it out of the cabinet and I said, "What? I have a bottle of that?" Glen Scotia, amazing. One of the greatest things about lowland scotches is this light, fruity, almost floral, grassy flavor they have to them. Let's give it a sip. It's been a while since I had this one.
Yeah, beautiful whiskey. Whilst we have a little break and we sip our whiskeys, I obviously no longer work for 7 Grand Before, which means I have no shame when I say give them money and plug the GoFundMe account. Obviously, terrible situation that's going on with bartenders all around the globe actually being out of work, and we found our industry being shut down within 4 hours on Sunday. The whole of both of our cities. So if you have anything for to help pay the bartenders who are earning zero money other than the unemployment check throughout the next couple of months, that would be great. And the GoFundMe account is where, Josh? Where can they find that?
That will be found if you go to the GoFundMe page and search 7 Grand San Diego. That's us. And like Jay was saying, we'd like to say huge thanks to everybody that donated earlier. Helped us reach our goal of $5,000, which is going to help our staff survive this strange time that we're in right now. Like Jay said, we pretty much got a message on Sunday morning letting us know we no longer had a job. So for those of us that are unprepared or underprepared or are prepared, it's definitely been a huge crutch to us. It's really helped us like ease our anxiety and really helped us out. And if you're laughing at any of us right now, me, Jay, or Ivany, and I promise we'll get funnier throughout the night, donate to our GoFundMe page.
All right, so right here we have a question from Mr. Nick Hawes. What is your choice Scotch cocktail and what Scotch does it use?
Jay, you want this one?
Yeah, great question. So my favorite, if I'm making it at home, is because I love to make Manhattan Rob Roy riffs at my house because I always manage to fuck up citrus cocktails when I'm making them at home for some reason. Been bartending for 17 years and I can't make a citrus cocktail to save my life in my kitchen. So I always make Manhattan or Rob Roy variations. So my favorite, if I'm at home, would be Ardbeg 10-year Bobby Burns, which is Ardbeg 10-year, sweet vermouth, and I use Punta Mez because I like it to be a little bit drier. And then a ½ ounce of Benedictine, a little bit of bitters, stir it down with an orange twist, and it's just banging, just smoky and rich and really decadent. If I'm at a bar, I'll and that's on the menu. So in 7 Grand in Los Angeles, that drink's on the menu, but not with Ardbeg, with a blended whiskey. Then I'll always go for that. I'm a sucker for Benedictine. So Scotch and Benedictine, I think is such a great combination. So that's my go-to.
Scotch and Benedictine, I support that 100%. Well, geez, I guess I would have to say I'd be torn between a penicillin, even though I have never made myself a penicillin ever. Although every time I made one, I was thinking the whole time, I would like to drink this. It is a delicious drink. It basically is composed of lemon juice, honey, a little bit of ginger syrup. So juice some ginger, get your mortar and pestle, smash up a bunch of ginger, get the juices, add 50% sugar, get that all combined. A little bit of blended Scotch and a smidge of smoky Scotch, like something from Islay, something peated. Shake it up and That's probably my favorite drink.
Drink it.
People guzzle them down. They love that. They love
So,
it.
We were here by Brian Pierce, who says that his two favorite drinks or bottles is the Yamazaki 18-year and the Lagavulin Double Matured. What do you guys think about those?
Which was the other?
Are they two different? I'm not very familiar with them.
Drastically different whiskeys. The Yamazaki 18-year-old being a 18-year-old Japanese whiskey, although it is inspired by Scotch, and the single malt, way different than a Lagavulin Distiller's Edition, which is going to be extra matured in some sort of wine finished barrels. Jay, do you know this year's? Oh no, you're out of the whiskey game, so yeah, you have no idea. Yeah.
So now it's crazy. Yeah. I can tell you what Don McKay's doing, but I have to say, Lagavulin is banging. Like that is just a beautiful whiskey. Like their balance is unbelievable. Obviously, Yamazaki 18 is Yamazaki 18. Like that's if you can get hold of it, you should be drinking that. To be honest, no matter what, just because you probably won't get the chance in the coming years to really drink that. But I think Lagavulin is a beautiful whiskey. So.
Yeah, last time I checked, the Yamazaki 18-year-old was going for like $1,200 to $1,300 a bottle. So, good luck, Brian Pierce, whoever you are out there.
Yeah.
All right, so we have another viewer who's saying that he has Scotch, lemon, and these are ingredients: Scotch, lemon, bitters, ginger beer, sugar, cubes, and honey. He wants to know what kind of cocktail he can make with these ingredients.
A pretty fucking delicious one.
Sounds great.
You can mix it if you're making a cocktail. Really, like the general a general rule to follow if you're at home and you're making a drink and you don't know how to balance it, which is always the most difficult thing. Getting the ingredients is pretty simple. Balancing it is really difficult. So a general structure to follow is 2 parts strong, 1 part sour, and half part sweet, depending on how sweet you like a drink. So if you've got whiskey, for instance, just put 2 ounces of whiskey. If you've got lemon juice, put full 1 ounce of lemon juice in there. And if you've got honey, put ½ ounce of honey in there. Shake that all up. You're going to have a really nice balanced drink. Now, if you add a little bit of bitters to that, you're going to add aromatic element. It's going to pull the honey away from being kind of rich and sweet to add this kind of like tea kind of note to it, or herbaceous, I suppose would be a better way of saying it. And then, top with ginger beer and you're laughing. I'd say like, great, it's a banging drink.
We have a nice cocktail recipe here from Stephanie, who says that her quarantine scotch is Glenfiddich Project XX.
Glenfiddich.
Oh, Glenfiddich. I'm so sorry, guys. Glenfiddich over ice with a baby splash of soda.
Nice. That sounds great.
It's a perfect drink. Stephanie?
Yes, Miss Stephanie Aguilar.
Stephanie, that's a great drink. You should drink that every day.
I have a Glenfiddich story actually about my granddad. Starts out a little morbid, but it gets great towards the end. So my granddad, when he got a lot older, he got Alzheimer's, and me and my dad would go into. He was in like some care home or something. And me and my dad would go in and visit him in the care home. And to be honest, towards the end, he was like gone. He was a vegetable. So we'd be like shaving him and cutting his hair and doing all stuff like that. And he used to have a whiskey before he went to bed, like every night for as long as I know, really, to be honest. And he would be there, he'd be incoherent, you'd be talking, but he wouldn't really be able to understand you. And there would be certain times where you'd pour him, and he used to love Glenfiddich. Certain times we'd just take a bottle of whiskey in. We'd pour him a little dram of whiskey, and we'd give him some of that, and he'd just, eyes would brighten up, and he'd just look at us and be like, oh, fuck, that's nice. And he would just be back in the room all of a sudden. So I'm not saying whiskey's the cure for Alzheimer's, but like Glenfiddich always has got a soft spot in my heart because it always made my granddad come back to life from time to time. So actually, here, which we'll probably be drinking in the Speyside section. So to my granddad, when we do.
Cheers to your granddad.
Moving on to Speyside whiskeys to keep us on track. What do you have? Are you doing some Glenfiddich?
Yeah, let's do that. Seems like a good make this one better. So what one you got over there?
So over here I have a very special dram to me.
Nice.
This is a bottle I purchased in Munich from some independent bottler. It is a random Speyside vintage 1993. I bought this in 2008, 7, 9. I don't really remember.
Oh, look
But
at that. Nuts.
who knows what it is, but it is delicious.
Any whiskey you have in a tiny little kidney bottle, I'm all about. It could be Screwball, I wouldn't care. If it's in a tiny kidney bottle, I want to drink it. So my dram, having given a little link to it, would be Glenfiddich 18 year. So pretty great.
Pretty great indeed.
So cheers, everybody.
Cheers to a great story.
And if you guys watching at home, if you are drinking a dram, write it down into the comment section so we know what you're drinking, so we can cheers. Yeah.
We'd love to hear what everybody's having out there as we continue to deplete our collection.
Glenfiddich is one of those ones it's kind of like Macallan. I always forget how good it is until I drink it. I'm like, actually, fuck, that's really good. We get so caught up in the smaller brands, you forget that some of the big ones are banging, you know.
Oh, they're so good.
Some good distillery stories.
So I've spent a lot of my career at 7 Grand, San Diego, at least once or twice a year, going out to Kentucky and visiting various distilleries. And the one thing that really enamored me, the one thing that really has always grabbed a hold of me, is the romance behind it. It's not necessarily although I do love the chemistry, it's the art, it's the romance and the idealism behind creating great whiskey. So I've been to Kentucky multiple times, and every time I go to Kentucky, I fall in love, and this is the greatest experience I could ever have. Lots of stories we can never say on camera, but it's always a good time. Jay, I was wondering if you could share a few of your stories from visiting Scottish distilleries, in particular Bowmore, which is one of my favorite distilleries.
Yeah, good one. So we went out to Scotland and Ireland for Chad Owen, our general manager's wedding. He was at a wedding out in Ireland. So we went there, and whilst we were there, we took the opportunity to take a tour with the whole of Scotland, basically. But we mainly, distillery-wise, we mainly went to Islay. And I mean, we hopped about and did loads of different. Actually, we've got some cool bottles that we brought back from there. We have this hand-filled bottle from Bruichladdich, which is a banger. We got some really fun little bottles on that tour. But the Bowmore tour was the best. I mean, we did Lefroy, Bowmore, Bruichladdich, Killoman was great. The main problem with the Lefroy tour was the guy that did our tour was a Man United fan, so I just couldn't get with it. Like, no matter what he was saying, I couldn't have any of it.
Nobody likes Man United fans.
Dude, I mean, yeah.
Not to digress from our conversation, but how did it feel to watch Liverpool be ripped away from a championship due to this COVID-19 outbreak?
Well, to be honest, we're playing like a pub side at the moment, so I think anything would beat us at the moment. An egg whisk would beat us, to be frank. So yeah, we're fucking terrible right now. So the Lefroy tour was good, and you get to pick a single barrel, kind of like you would in Kentucky, but you don't get to buy the whole barrel. You get to take a little bottle to go home, which is nice. But the Bowmore trip was something crazy because we really kind of vibed with the woman that was taking us around. We actually took a bottle of 7 Grand 4 Roses single barrel as a gift. And at the end of the tour, we gifted to her because we made such a connection. She let us go everywhere. We did Grain Angels in the barley. We went to the malt. It was incredible. We turned the malt. She let us get into the peat fire, like the actual fire. We was in the kiln. It was unbelievable. So you watch the whole process. It's one of those things where when you're kind of teaching it and you're talking about it and you're drinking it all the time is one thing, but to actually see the process happen is something incredible. So we went into the kiln, and if you look up in the kiln, you see the grates of the malting floor above where they are peat in the malt. So you're looking up and you see through there, and you can throw more peat on the fire. It's like Disneyland for us, you know. So we went in there. We're in the kiln. We're all hanging out, and she takes us on the tour. We go up to the to where they're peating the malt, and you go to a room basically above the kiln. And the way it works is there's grates on the floor, small enough so the grain doesn't go through, but big enough so the smoke rises up and infuses all the grain basically. And we're up there, and it, you know, you're treading in it, and it's coming up to your shins. It's so full. You're picking it up, you can eat it, you're chewing on it, and it was just an incredible, like, all-encompassing tour. All of the senses were involved. Just brilliant. And then we walked around, and just when you think it couldn't get any better, we went down to like the warehouses. They've got a stone warehouse right on the waterfront, and we went down in there, and she poured 2 barrels. One was exclusive sherry. I think it was Pedro Jimenez. Oh no, it was Oloroso. Sorry, Oloroso sherry barrel. And then she had an ex-bourbon barrel there. I think it was Jim Beam, which would make some sense. And then we were trying both, and you get to take home a little bottle of the one that you like the most. But obviously, because at this point we'd given her the Four Roses bottle, she was letting us just keep drawing from these barrels. And the sherry barrel was probably the best whiskey I've ever tried in my life. And me and Brett Winfield, who was the old GM of 7 Grand, were there, just minds exploding on the store. Actually, the little bottle is... So this is Geraldine's bottle, so we're going to be drinking that at some point. Mine's pretty much empty. But it's just a bottle like that. The colour is beautiful, and I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's all the char still floating in it. And it was
I see that.
just from start to finish, you're drinking it with your eyes, your nose, your mouth, like that. It's what we talk about whiskey being all 5 senses. Going through that tour, it touches every one of them. It's just a great experience that, you know, you don't get to do often. So yeah, that was incredible. Just a real. And then at the end of it, we bought you a bottle of whiskey to bring home. So it's a good one.
I appreciate that. So let's reach out to our viewers. Any questions, comments, concerns?
Well, I know that one of like the big ones is always the difference between new Scotch and old Scotch. That's like a very debated, maybe on a personal preference type. But what would you guys say as far as suggesting new or old, or maybe both?
Yeah, so new, old. Do you want to drink a young Scotch that has a 2-year-old statement on it or a 3-year-old statement on it? Probably not. Do you want to drink a Scotch that has a 50-year-old statement on it? Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
The reason you're paying so much for old Scotches is the rarity of it. As whiskey sits in a barrel, it evaporates. It picks up more of those wood flavors, and it becomes more of a rare product the older and older and older it gets. So younger Scotch whiskeys are always going to be a little bit cheaper because you're not paying for those taxes. You're not sitting on that barrel for years and years and years. For me personally, one of my all-time favorite whiskeys is young Scotch, like the Fault Line bottle I can see on Jay's table in my little window right here. This is a young, what I believe, 6-7-year-old Colila.
Mm-hmm.
And it is absolutely amazing.
So I have to say, sorry, Josh, go on, carry on.
Oh, no.
I was going to say, every time I drink this whiskey, it reminds me of one of our whiskey freaks that comes to the Whiskey Society, Michael. He loves this whiskey. So if we have any left, Josh, I know you're ruling the roost. If you have any left down in Bar 3 Piece, next time he's in, you have to pour him an ounce as a welcome back to the Whiskey Society. He goes nuts for this whiskey. So
I got a little nip left.
There we go.
So, for example, that whiskey is young. It's 6-7 years old, and it's one of my all-time favorite Scotch whiskeys I've ever drinking. That being said, my other favorite Scotch whiskey is Bowmore 25-year. So, I don't know. If you can afford it, buy some old whiskey. If you can't afford it, drink young whiskey. They're both delicious. It's a win-win situation when it comes to whiskey.
It's like what Zach says about bourbon. Some whiskeys do have a sweet spot, and he was saying if you're drinking a bourbon over 12 years, and what is it Jimmy Russell says? If you're drinking an 8-year whiskey, it's a whiskey that wasn't good enough at 6 year. If you're drinking a 10-year whiskey, it was a whiskey that wasn't good enough for 8 years. If you're drinking a 12-year whiskey, then something's going fucking wrong in your distillery. As far as that goes, they never drink anything over than 12 years in bourbon. I think like Scotch obviously ages a lot slower than bourbon because of the climate. But I tend to really love like 12-year-old Scotches, to be honest. Like, and when we're talking about peated whiskies, like this whiskey's nuts because you still get such like vibrant peat from it. Whereas like when you go into the old years, like that Bowmore is an exception. That's unbelievable, right? But with peated whiskies, if you get them fairly young and the distillate's banging and the barrel's done its job, then like you can have a 6-8 year, Islay whiskey or peated whiskey in general, and it's incredible because you've got all those big, like rich, vibrant peat flavors still in there.
Flies, you got infiltration of gnats.
Coming to get you.
Well, that being said, let's talk about that Octomore you got back there.
Oh yeah. So this one's pretty bonkers. Octomore. This one is 8.1, 167 ppm. So I think the most they did was in the 300. It's like 307 or something crazy like that. So as far as they go, this is pretty light. I think Lafroig is what, 45? And Lafroig is like the go-to. Everybody thinks is hugely peaty. So the fact that this is 167 is pretty big. 120 proof, so it carries a bit of a punch.
Let me get a glass of that. I'll take a glass of that. Yeah.
You got it?
Thank you. Yep.
Nice. Let me know what you think. Yeah, and Octomore is kind of one of those ones where it's known for, let me see what the age is, 8 years, right? So there we go. One of the heaviest peated whiskies in the world, and it's 8 years old. So you get and everybody thinks it's just going to be a smoke bomb, but it's not. It's like big, fruity, vibrant, like fatty even in parts, really viscous. So yeah, whiskey's weird. It's science, and we don't understand science other than it's delicious, so we just drink it.
Not at all. Let's all drink a glass for a second. Let Ivany ask us some questions.
All right, right on. First of all,
don't mind me.
You didn't spill that. No whiskey Scotch was harmed in that drop of the glass. All right, so speaking of that bottle or any other bottle, we have Mr. Cody Mesa here asking which is the best way to start a collection. He wants to start a collection to fill up his shelf and his wall of beautiful bottles. What bottles would you guys recommend? At least maybe the first one or the first top 3? Tell us.
First off, that's a fantastic question. Actually, that's a great question. So I'd say if you're putting bourbon on your shelf at the moment, go for something like Henry McKenna. Still really cheap, beautiful whiskey, 10 years, single barrel, banging whiskey. I'd say that's a good one. So that's great. Scotch-wise, the problem with Scotch in the States is it's kind of pricey, but I would definitely say have a Highland Park 12 on your shelf. Aberfeld one. You got a lot of diversity there. Glenfarclas that you were saying, Josh, is a banger. That's great. Yeah, and then I suppose Irish, then you'd want to look at Redbreast, I'd say. People seem to like Teelings. Teelings is nice. For them, some of them are a bit hit and miss, but for the most part, they're nice. But yeah, I think in the States, you got a really good selection of approachable bourbons to choose from, around about like the $20 to $35 price range. Like Four Roses small batch is incredible, and that should be on everybody's home bar. Really thinking about it. Yeah, Josh, what do you think?
I agree with your statements 100%. Seek out whiskeys that look delicious at a low price point, and start trying them. And it's all about trial and error. For me, like I try whiskeys. I used to try whiskeys every day, all the time. So I was able to like really be like, all right, cool. I like those qualities. I don't like those qualities. When you walk into Costco, I would say, what's the fanciest label for the best bang for your buck? I would buy that. And if it tastes good, keep buying it.
Yeah.
Outside of that, we're in strange times these days, and I have no idea what liquor stores even look like. I bought a bottle of Wild Turkey today for $29. expensive for one bottle. Yeah.
Turkey
Right.
101.
Yeah, go ahead.
Was that Turkey 101, Josh?
Yes, sir.
Fuck. Nice. Well, even that, like my friend's doing that at the moment, so I'm buying in bottles, and one of the first ones I picked up was Evan Williams single barrel. So you can't go wrong with that. That's always a good if you're looking at bourbon.
Yeah. I haven't put shoes on in over a week and a half.
Nice.
Just letting you know. That's this. I just noticed this is the first barefoot whiskey society I've ever done.
Well, I'm wearing slippers.
Just letting everybody know right now.
Okay, so we have another viewer here asking, what's your favorite region in Scotland to drink from and why?
That's another good question.
It's a fucking great question.
I think that for me, I would at this point now, I like to drink Islay whiskies a lot. You know, I tend to really enjoy that big, heavy, not even just peat, but just like punch of flavor. Because you know, as bartenders, our palates are wrecked for the most part. You know, we drink a lot of different spirits. You know, and your palate evolves into liking a lot drier and more bold flavors. So I think for me, I will never pass up an Islay whiskey for sure. But then all of them are great. There's only like 15 bad whiskeys in the world, to be honest. So most of them are brilliant.
Very true, Jay. And I completely concur with your decision. I love Islay whiskeys, and I think it is that punch in the face. Many of you out there, viewers, don't know that while we worked at 7 Grand, we took the occasional shot of whiskey. And so when you're trying whiskey, sometimes you want something that's a little bit like, it's going to switch up the game play. For example, if you haven't watched Tiger King, I'll plug Tiger King right now. That'll switch up your viewing experience. Tiger King is literally the craziest thing you'll ever watch. Similar to an Islay whiskey, you knew you liked getting drunk, you knew you liked the experience, but have you ever experienced anything like this before? And the answer is probably no, because Islay whiskeys they're big, they're bold, they're in your face. But those characteristics are the same reason everybody loves Black Sabbath. And that's how I relate to Islay whiskey.
Nice. I like that link. Yeah.
And that being said, there's a lot of smokiness to Islay whiskey that we all find fond. And since Jay has joined the dark side and moved on to agave-based spirits, think a little bit about mezcal, because I know nothing about mezcal other than burn, 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 burn. No, just being silly.
Yeah, you know, it's nuts. Like coming from a whiskey world, and I miss whiskey like crazy, but like mezcal is something you can't not fall in love with mezcal and the way it's made. It's just bonkers. So it's a real community spirit as far as it goes. So the smoke that you get from a mezcal is completely different to the smoke that you would get from a Scotch. So they have the agaves and they roast them in the ground, and that's a whole community event. So the whole community will, for the most part, will come around and dig this big pit in the ground, basically in the dirt. They will get these agaves and they will bury them in the ground. Sometimes they'll put, what you got there? Is that tequila?
That's mezcal.
You got some mezcal. Nice. There we go.
Shout out to Roby.
There we go. Good work. So with Scotch and whiskey in general, you know, you're going to get like, 65 to 75% of the flavor from the barrel that you use at the end. With mezcal, it's at the front of the production. So it's all in the plant, all in the agave. So we've got some agaves that grow for like 30 years in the ground, and they're slowly nourishing this like nectar that they're going to, this, you know, carbohydrate and fructose heavy, that they're going to end up turning into alcohol. So like, whereas the quality is on the back end of whiskey, it's on the front end of agave-based spirits. They grab these agaves, they chop them down, they put them in this big pit in the floor, they set fire to the ground and the volcanic rock. They bury it all over, and like I say, all their neighbors will come and help in this process. So it's a real community-driven spirit. They'll cook them for days, like the slow roasting the agaves, basically. And when you pull it out, it's literally like this fibrous gunk that you can eat, and it's sugary and beautiful. And then here is the most incredible thing about mezcal, is that if you go to a distillery, a whiskey distillery, They'll have, for the most part, these huge fermentation tanks. Some of them are covered. They'll add proprietary yeast that they get from a lab. They'll put it in there to kickstart the fermentation process. In mezcal production, they have open vats, and it's all natural fermentation, right? So literally any yeast that's in the air come and inoculates the batch. So if, for instance, you have rose bushes growing all around your fermentation tank, you end up with a really floral, light, rose flavored mezcal in the end. So you can dictate the flavor of your mezcal based around the yeast that lives on the local fauna around the distillery. So it's just beautiful, to be honest. It's an incredible process. So the differences being, like whiskey now, as beautiful as it is really industrial. You get the nature from the barrel, whereas with mezcal, the nature kind of runs through the entire spirit. So I'm kind of in love with it a little bit as well at the moment. I miss whiskey like crazy, but yeah, it's pretty beautiful, the whole production technique. I feel like we're on a tangent there.
It sounds like you have an official mistress.
That's what it feels like.
Right here, Tom Corner is asking, what's your favorite non-island whiskey, Josh?
What's my favorite non-Islay whiskey?
Yeah.
Ooh, it's an easy answer. So the whiskey that brought me into the Scotch world was Glenfarclas 17-year, like I said earlier. But the whiskey I love more than anything else from Scotland, outside of the Islay region, is Glendronach. Glendronach is exclusively aged in sherry barrels, and it can be found for extremely reasonable prices. Jay is showing off a fancier bottle than mine, which is Angry.
I think yours is fancy.
18-year-old, either way, exclusively aged in sherry barrels. It is delicious.
Shall we have a nightcap?
Indeed, we should. We are at the end of our show tonight, everybody. So I hope everybody had a good time. If you have any questions that you feel didn't get answered, hit us up right now, and we'll hit you up. But for now, I'm going to try a little bit of this Glendronach.
Do you need a new glass? I'll get you a new glass. No?
You just got to drink that. Yeah. Just drink it.
Cheers.
Cheers. Oh yeah, banging. It's really nice. So Josh, you've got the 18-year, which is what, both Oloroso and Pedro Jimenez?
Yes, sir. This is a combination of Spanish Oloroso sherry casks. Oh no, that's it. That's all it is.
Oh wow, that's cool. So I think this is both. Let's see. Yeah, Oloroso, Pedro Jimenez, and ex-bourbon. So it's cool. Also, I'd like to give, whilst we're talking Scotch, it would be great to give a shout out to Killoman, just as a distillery that everybody should drink at some point. Like we haven't touched on that tonight, but we went to that distillery as well, which was incredible, and they do some unbelievable special releases. Farm distillation, so it's on literally a tiny little farm on like Loch Gorm, just beautiful place, incredible whiskies, decent price as far as they go. Like 7 Grand has got a lot of that range, and you can get a 2 ounce of the Mathieu Bay for like in the 20s, right? So it's a banging product to try if you're in either 7 Grands or all 3 of the 7 Grands if you're listening from Austin or Denver.
Awesome. Have you given that a sip yet, love?
I have not yet. So
Just going to try the Glendronach 18-year-old for the first time.
Hey, cheers to that. I wish I was you. It's quite a moment.
Cheers to that.
Cheers. All right. So as Josh says, if there's any final questions, anything that we didn't cover that you guys want to know about Scotch whiskey, I think there's a couple of minutes would probably be a good time to do it.
Let us know.
That is really good.
Are we good?
That's really good. Oh, okay. Well, you know what? Someone's asking if you're buzzed. That's not really a question, but Josh is pretty buzzed over here.
Me? Oh, yes. I have been quarantined for 12 I'm used to talking to people every single night. So just to give a little insight, I'm pretty used to spending my days chilling on the couch, reading a book, visiting the beach. But once the sun sets, I go to work. I start entertaining people. And I have no one to entertain anymore. So I'm starting to slowly lose my mind because this is the only person that I love. She is barely laughing at my jokes, although she just did right there, which is a killer. So, yes, I am slowly losing my mind and a little buzz.
Probably the most global we've been for a whiskey society, to be honest, as far as it goes.
True, right?
Yeah.
And also, all right, so that was a fun question. And I just have to say that having both of you guys today live on this Whiskey Society is such a great joy because, first of all, I love both of you. Jay, when you were at 7 Grand in San Diego, you were so great and so amazing.
The greatest.
The sweetest, the kindest, and most, what's the word? Informative whiskey. I mean, you fulfilled your job as a Whiskey Society host.
Mm.
And then when that was passed down to Josh, I could see, like, having that at Whiskey Society with both of you guys, it's such a gem because both of you are great in your own ways. And so it's a pleasure to be watching and listening to you guys talk about Scotch because there's never been any kind of Whiskey Society where I've seen both of you guys, like, live.
Live. Yeah, it's pretty special. I mean, you say passed it down to Josh. Most people would say I passed it back up to Josh, to be honest.
Oh, how about a side pass?
A horizontal pass, yeah.
Quick through ball.
No, it's a privilege being here, and thanks for the invite, honestly. Any excuse to chat to you guys, you, my family, and drink whiskey is, you know.
And I'd like to thank all of our viewers. Thanks for tuning in. I don't know who you are because I have no idea how this system works.
We can't see them.
Talking into my computer right now. But if you're still with us, I'm a huge fan of jokes, and so I have a few.
What?
I have a few jokes for everybody that are hilarious. Hey, baby, if COVID-19 doesn't take you out, I will. We're going to read them back and forth because they're fucking hilarious.
I hope Alex is on here because he loves a cheesy joke.
I hope Alex is on here as well.
So a really good friend of ours who is also watching, Kayla, sent us this amazing list of social distancing pickup lines that maybe you guys might want to use on a group chat, on a dating chat, because obviously we can't meet people at bars, at laundromats, at grocery stores anymore.
Pumpkin patches, Christmas tree cut downs,
climbing gyms,
flower patches,
barley mash.
Barley mash. Oh. Nice one, Jay. Nice. Jay saying barley mash because that's how Josh and I met. We met at barley mash in San Diego. All right, so one of the other pickup lines is pretty cute. You might want to use this one. This is for the ladies out there. You might want to use this pickup line on the fellas, on the dudes and the guys. So
sure.
Hey, is that hand sanitizer in your pocket, or are you happy to be within 6 feet of me? Gross. I would never say that.
It's a good one.
Yes, you would. For all the dudes out there that are still trying to scam on their ladies that they live with, since all the libraries are closed, I'm checking you out instead. Oh shit. That might work. That actually might work.
I like that one. That one's kind of cute.
Yeah, that works. That works.
How about you can't spell virus without you and I?
Have a good night, everybody.
Cheers, y'all.
No, I'm coming back. We got more jokes. Hold on. Baby, you need toilet paper because I can be your Prince Charming.
Ooh, nice. Relevant. Very relevant.
That's very good. I'll saw you from across the bar. Stay there.
That sounds more like an insult. They're so corny, but they're so funny. It's such a great.
We're gonna keep them going. We're gonna keep them going.
You can spell quarantine without URAQT.
That must be.
Wow, that's some wordsmith stuff. I didn't see that one coming.
And I'd like everybody to give a big shout out to Jay Stapleton for joining us tonight. Jay, thank you so much for visiting us from Los Angeles, California, live. Ivan Villalobos and I, we're signing off. It's been a pleasure entertaining you guys tonight, and we hope you join in next week for another glorious edition of Whiskey Society. I'll leave you on a positive note. I really can't stay. Baby, it's COVID-19 outside. Have a good night.